Hi everybody, hope you're all well. Just going to do a story of how I went from Woodhill Prison in 1994 and how I ended up getting to Wembley Stadium to fight the future heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. So back in 1994 I was 18 and I was on the weight training, so I was a big lad. I was 18 and a half to 19 stone at the age of 18, and I was with a little firm that were doing some bits of work around the city, and I was getting into all sorts of trouble. I was fighting a lot of street fights, but I don't start fights, but I'll help people out, and I'd get phone calls, or I would make it my business. If I saw someone in trouble, I'd love to jump in and help them. And if I saw doormen being a bit heavy-handed, I would jump in and have a go at a load of doormen. And even police officers, if I saw police being a bit heavy-handed, I would just steam into police. I was a bit wild, silly looking back now. I mean, I've got respect for the authorities now, and I wouldn't do that sort of stuff now, and I know they're doing their job. But when you're young and you're 18 and you've got something to prove, you do silly things like that. So the reason I went to Woodhill Prison was I had a fight with some doormen that had thrown my mate down the stairs, and after the fight I've knocked one of their teeth out, and the police turned up, and I had a fight with the police. I got put in the meat wagon, took to the station, and I got out of the police station the following day, and it was alleged, because I got arrested for this, it was alleged that me and a mate had walked past a party and got into a fight with 9 or 10 men. This is what was alleged, and there was injuries, there was broken bones and cuts and stuff like that. Anyway, so I was arrested for that. I was arrested for the other, and I was out on bail, and I got into another fight within the space of 2 months. So this was a fight against some police officers that were being a bit rough with someone on the street. I mean, looking back now, that's just stupidness. But and they had to remind me, because they said you've done, this is three violent charges you've had in the space of a couple of months. So I was reminded and taken to Woodhill. But I always take a positive out of this, and even though it was a negative, the biggest positive, probably one of the biggest positives of my life, came from that. And that was that in Woodhill Prison I met up with one of my heroes, Norman Buckland, and we knew each other from when I was the age of about 13. I won't go too much about Norman because I've got a video coming up about Norman, but Norman was a legend, a street fighting legend, not a bully, lovely bloke, and one of my heroes. So he sort of said to me, rather than fighting with the police and with the doorman, why don't you channel your strength and aggression into boxing? And I'd never considered boxing, so Norman was the first person to ever sort of encourage me to do that. And what we did, we tried to get gloves and head guard and stuff into the prison. We asked them, but they wouldn't let us. They said it would incite trouble. So what we had to do, we had to wrap socks around our knuckles, and we had no gum shield or head guard. We just wrapped a couple of pairs of socks around our knuckles, and then we would go into the shower area, because it was a big space like a ring, and we would just basically spar. But it was like a fight, and I was up against Norman, was in his prime then as well. So Norman was, yeah, it was good. It was tough, but I loved it. I enjoyed it, and I was a big lad. I was 18 and a half stone, and I could take it. I could take the punches, and I loved the toughness of it. So I'm eternally grateful for Norman for doing that for me, because without that encouragement, I don't think I would have ever been a boxer. So anyway, after that, I got out of prison and I went straight into the amateur boxing. Various clubs around Milton Keynes and Newport Pagnell with Ian and other different clubs, and I was doing well. And I lost one fight, my fourth fight, to Matthew Granger in the novice England novice final. He would turn out to be the only man to beat me. He beat me twice. Somewhere down the line that was, but a bit further along. Anyway, so my amateur career was going well. I'd go on and off. I'd have a fight and I'd go missing for a few months, and then I'd come back, I'd go drinking, and but eventually I went with Ricky English. You might know Ricky English, who runs all the unlicensed shows, does the Governor fights with Joey Pyle. Ricky took me under his wing, and we had a great run. I had 10 amateur fights in a row with Ricky. I won 9 of them, most of them by knockout, and they were all champions. I beat all the champions all the way up to the ABA final at super heavyweight. I beat the London champ, the Western Counties champ, loads. And then I got to the final of the ABAs in my 15th fight, and it was Matthew Granger, the man who'd beaten me a few years earlier in the novice final. But I was a lot better then, and I thought I'm going to take him out this time. But the fight's on my channel, so you can watch the fight. And I lost by 1 point. I got 1 point loss in the ABA final. So if I'd have beaten him, I'd have been the number one in the country. But Frank Maloney was there watching, because he took an interest in me as a fighter, and he'd come to watch, and he said he would sign me up professional with Frank Warren. So what happened after the ABAs, Frank Maloney and Frank Warren signed me up. I got a good deal, and I went with Sports Network for the start of my pro career with Ricky English. So Ricky kept on training me as a pro, because Ricky was a pro trainer. And then I won my first 3 fights. I had a tough fight against Mal Rice, who was a very tough Welshman. He just fought Mark Potter. That was my debut. Then I fought Tony Booth. He had about 108 fights. And then I fought Dave Clark, which is on my channel as well. That was on Sky Sports. And then my 4th fight, I lost to a fella called Slick Miller, who's a very dangerous fighter. He caught me with a great punch, and I lost my first fight. Went off the rails a little bit for a few years. I had a few years out of boxing. I came back to boxing in 2008 with a great trainer from Luton, Jack Lindsay, who trained Billy Schreier and numerous other good fighters. I won those 2 fights in Watford, and that was the crazy thing was I didn't realise at the time, but a young Anthony Joshua was in the crowd supporting me, and he'd already heard of me and he was watching me. He was only young then, he probably was about 17, 18, but he told me himself that he used to support me and he looked up to me when he was young, which was mind-blowing really, an honour to have that said about you. Anyway, after that I had another few years out, and I came back in 2014 or 2013 with Mervyn Turner, who got me some great fights. Eternally grateful for Mervyn. He got me to fight with James Toney, and he got me to fight with Anthony Joshua, and I got a couple of wins in between those fights. So I was 38 years old, so my last part of my career I got 2 good wins and I got 2 losses, but two losses to a Hall of Famer in James Toney, a man who knocks out Evander Holyfield, which not many people, no one does apart from Riddick Bowe. And I lost to Anthony Joshua, the future heavyweight champion, and I was 38 years old. So it was a great way to end my career, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of how I attacked AJ. I steamed into him and tried to take him out. You can't do that with James Toney, because he's too skillful, too tough, and he'll counter you. So with James Toney, who's never been knocked out in 90 fights, I had to take it a little bit easier and try and touch him and move, because you just cannot go out and knock him out. That he's impossible to knock out. But yeah, as I look back on it, I'm proud of my career, and maybe I could have done more. I could have had more fights if I took it more seriously in the middle. But the way it ended, I can't complain. I got to fight two great fighters, 2 champions. So all in all, I'm pleased to come from Woodhill Prison to Wembley Stadium in my last fight. You know what I mean? That's something that I'd never would have dreamed of. But yeah, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. All the best.